Killing of Tyre Nichols. On January 7, 2023, 5 black police officers of the Memphis Police Department (MPD) severely beat Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old black man, during a traffic stop. Nichols was hospitalized in critical condition and died 3 days later. Police killing in Memphis, Tennessee. Officers claimed to have stopped Nichols for reckless driving. They pulled him from his car and used pepper spray and a taser on him. During the incident, Nichols managed to break away. When officers caught up with Nichols, they beat him for about 3 minutes, punching and kicking him in the head and striking him on the back with a baton while he was restrained. Both the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Department of Justice opened investigations, and the 5 officers were fired on January 20. The preliminary results of an autopsy commissioned by Nichols' family and released on January 23 found extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating. The 5 officers were arrested on January 26 and charged with murder, kidnapping, assault, and misconduct. 3 firefighters, 2 emergency medical technicians, and a lieutenant who attended the scene were relieved of duty and subsequently fired for failing to conduct an adequate patient assessment of Nichols. 2 other police officers were also later relieved of duty in January 27. MPD released 4 clips of edited video from January 7 showing various events between 8:24 p.m. and 9:02 p.m. The release of this police body camera footage plus surveillance footage were followed by widespread protests. Tyre Nichols, Uncles Tyre, June 5, 1993. January 10, 2023 was a 29-year-old black man. He worked for FedEx and had a 4-year-old son. He was also an amateur photographer with his own photography website. Nichols was raised in Sacramento, California, and moved to Memphis in 2020. According to his family's attorney, Nichols had a slim build due to Crohn's disease, weighing 145 pounds 66 kilograms at a height of 6 feet 3 inches 1.91 meters. The 5 black police officers involved each had 3 to 6 years of experience. All were members of a 30-person specialized hotspot policing unit known as SCORPION, Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. SCORPION was assembled in October 2021 to deal with serious crimes. SCORPION officers drove unmarked cars and many dressed in plain clothes, wearing bulletproof vests marked Police. Officers were identified as Tadarius Bean, 24, hired August Demetrius Haley, 30, hired August 2020, a former corrections officer Emmett Martin, 3, 30, hired March Desmond Mills Jr., 32, hired March 2017, a former jailer in Mississippi and Tennessee Justin Smith, 28, hired March 2018. Traffic stop and death. Nichols was 2 minutes away from his home when he was stopped by MPD at approximately 8:24 p.m. on January 7, 2023, near the intersection of East Rains Road and Ross Road. At the traffic stop, officers pulled Nichols out of his car as he said, "I didn't do anything." An officer shouted, "Get on the fucking ground. I'm gonna taste your ass." Officers pushed Nichols to the ground. At about 8:25 p.m., a struggle began between the officers and Nichols. They attempted to pin Nichols to the ground, threatened him, yelled expletives, and used pepper spray and a taser on him. The pepper spray also hit several of the other officers. Ultimately, Nichols broke free and ran south on Ross Road, where he was pursued by at least 2 officers. 2 more police units arrived at the scene of the traffic stop around 8:29 p.m. Footage showed that one officer who remained at the area of the traffic stop said, "I hope they stomp his ass after he ran away." Officers caught up to Nichols at 8:33 p.m. at Castlegate Lane and Bear Creek, which is approximately a half a mile 800 meters away from the original traffic stop. He was then beaten for 3 more minutes. Body camera footage showed an officer shouting to Nichols, "I'm going to batten the fuck out of you." After that, officers pulled Nichols to a standing position and restrained his hands. During this time, Nichols was repeatedly punched in the face by officers, and eventually he fell to a kneeling position. Within the next minute, Nichols was kicked by an officer. The footage shows at least 5 punches to Nichols's face. The New York Times reported that Nichols repeatedly cried out for his mother and not appear to ever strike back during the beating. On scene, officers issued 71 commands over 13 minutes. Some commands were described as simultaneous and contradictory. By 8:37 p.m., Nichols was handcuffed and limp. Officers propped him against the side of a police car. After Nichols was on the ground, the involved officers convened and shared their stories about the arrest. One officer bragged, "I was hitting him with straight haymakers. Dog," while another exclaimed, "I jumped in, started rocking him." Medics arrived around 8:41 p.m. but did not begin to assist Nichols until 16 minutes later. An ambulance arrived at 9:02 p.m. and took Nichols to St. Francis Hospital at 9:18 p.m. after he complained of shortness of breath. On January 8, the department stated that the traffic stop of Nichols was due to reckless driving. Nichols died in the hospital on January. A police report written at 10:05 p.m. 1 hour after Nichols was taken to hospital by ambulance stated that Officer McKinney responded to an aggravated assault by suspect Tyre Nichols on the victim, Officer Emmett Martin. After Officer Emmett Martin III observed Nichols' blue Nissan driving recklessly at a high rate of speed and driving into oncoming traffic before conducting the traffic stop, using blue lights and sirens. It stated that Nichols was ordered to exit the vehicle, but alleged that he was refusing lawful detention, was sweating profusely, was irate when exiting the vehicle, started to fight with detectives, refused to comply with verbal commands to stop resisting, and at one point grabbed Officer Martin's gun. It said that Officer Haley deployed his chemical agent, and Officer Preston Hemphill deployed his taser into suspect Nichols' torso, which had no effect on suspect Tyre Nichols, as he continued to resist and began running away from the officers while pulling out the taser probes from his body. It concluded by stating that Detective Mills and Officer Bean located Nichols at Castlegate Lane and Bear Creek, at which point, while trying to detain him, Nichols allegedly continued actively resisting, pulling duty belts, grabbing Officer Smith's police vest, and after continuously ignoring verbal commands to stop resisting, Detective Mills deployed his ASP baton and striking suspect Nichols several times in an attempt to get the suspect to comply, after which Nichols was transported to St. Francis Park Hospital in critical condition. Released videos from after the beating did not corroborate the officers' claim that Nichols reached for their weapons. An expert noted that none of the officers seemed to indicate they were threatened, nor did any of the officers communicate the alleged reaching to fellow officers during the stop. The Shelby County Medical Examiner's Office hasn't yet released any autopsy results, nor has it issued a death certificate with an official cause of death of Nichols. Preliminary findings of an autopsy commissioned by his family found that Nichols suffered excessive bleeding caused by a severe beating in January 7. Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy asked the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to investigate allegations of excessive use of force during the arrest. On January 15, the Memphis Police Department announced the officers involved would face administrative action. The U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) also opened a civil rights investigation. On January 20, Memphis police announced that the 5 officers would be fired. In January 24, the 5 officers were arrested and charged with second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, and official oppression. As of January 27, all 5 men have posted bail and been released, according to Shelby County Jail records. By January 24, 2 Memphis Fire Department emergency medical technicians who were on scene had been relieved of duty without further explanation. A week later, a total of 3 MFD employees had been fired, the 2 EMTs and a lieutenant, for failing to conduct a proper patient assessment and treatment. A break in policies and procedures. January 27, Memphis Police Chief Saralyn Davis stated that her department reviewed footage, including from body cameras, regarding the traffic stop and the arrest, to determine what that probable cause was, and we have not been able to substantiate that. It doesn't mean that something didn't happen, but there's no proof. In January 26, the duly selected, impaneled, and sworn grand jury of the state of Tennessee indicted the 5 officers and presented upon their oath the following findings. Count 1, unlawfully and knowingly killing Tyre Nichols, murder, second degree. Count 2, unlawfully, knowingly, and while acting in concert with each other, committing an assault and cause serious bodily injury on Tyre Nichols, aggravated assault, acting in concert. Count 3, unlawfully and knowingly removed or confined Tyre Nichols so as to substantially interfere with the liberty of the said Tyre Nichols, resulting in Tyre Nichols suffering bodily injury. Aggravated kidnapping. Count 4, unlawfully and knowingly removed or confined Tyre Nichols so as to substantially interfere with the liberty of the said Tyre Nichols while possessing or threatening the use of a deadly weapon. Aggravated kidnapping with a deadly weapon. Count 5, unlawfully and intentionally or knowingly, while acting as public servants, commit an act that constituted an unauthorized exercise of official power, acting with the intent to obtain a benefit or harm another. Official misconduct, harming another. Count 6, unlawfully and intentionally or knowingly, while acting as public servants, refrained from performing a duty that was imposed by law or that was clearly inherent in the nature of the office, and acting with the intent to obtain a benefit or harm another. Official misconduct, refraining from performing a duty imposed by law. Count 7, unlawfully and intentionally subjected another to mistreatment or to arrest, detention, stop, frisk, halt, search, seizure, dispossession, assessment, or lien that defendants knew was unlawful while being public servants, acting under color of office. Official oppression. On Monday, Jan. 30th, authorities announced that 2 other police officers, Preston Hemphill and an unidentified officer, had also been relieved of duty. Nichols' family retained attorneys Benjamin Crump and Antonio Romanucci. Main article, Tyre Nichols protest in Columbus, Ohio. January 27, the police body-worn camera video footage of the incident was released to the public. Chief of Police Davis stated that officials intentionally decided it would be best to release the video later in the day after schools are dismissed and people are home from work due to concern over the civil unrest that might result after its release. Following the release of the video, protesters in Memphis blocked traffic on Interstate 55. By January 28, protests had also occurred in New York City, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Portland, Atlanta, San Francisco, Boston, Baltimore, and Newark. President Joe Biden spoke with the Nichols family and joined in their call for peaceful protest. Biden also told the family that he would renew a push with Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act to tackle police misconduct. Various police officers reacted to the death of Tyre Nichols. Police Chief Davis released a video statement where she said, "This is not just a professional failing. This is a failing of basic humanity toward another individual." On January 27, in an appearance on Good Morning America, she said, "In my 36 years, I would have to say I don't think I've ever been more horrified and disgusted, sad about the video, and it was still very unclear as to why the officers stopped Nichols." New York City Police Commissioner Keechant Sewell denounced what she called disgraceful actions, while Chicago Police Superintendent David O. Brown called the video horrific. On the day of the video's release, FBI Director Christopher Wray said he was appalled by the video, and Patrick Hughes, the national president of the Fraternal Order of Police, stated that the event as described to us does not constitute legitimate police work or a traffic stop gone wrong. This is a criminal assault under the pretext of law. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, a retired captain from the NYPD, told the press that the White House had briefed him and other mayors on the video ahead of its release, and that it would trigger pain and sadness in many of us. It will make us angry. A moment of silence was held for Nichols before the NBA basketball game in Minneapolis at the Target Center on January 27 between the Memphis Grizzlies and Minnesota Timberwolves. The Legal Aid Society of New York City released a statement that included, "We must continue to question the police's role in society, as these incidents frequently recur, and many more happen all the time without being captured on body-worn cameras." On January 29, Senate Judiciary Chair Dick Durbin said, "We need a national conversation about policing in a responsible, constitutional, and humane way. These men and women with badges put them on each day and risk their lives for us. I know that, but we also see from these videos horrible conduct by these same officers in unacceptable situations." Surf Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation issued a statement that stated, although the media has spent a great amount of time drawing attention to the fact that the police officers are black, as if that is important, let us be clear. Police represent the interest of capitalism and impel state-sanctioned violence. Anyone who works within a system that perpetuates state-sanctioned violence is complicit in upholding white supremacy. Aftermath. After Nichols's death, Chief Davis called for a review of the SCORPION unit, and the unit was disbanded on January 28. A GoFundMe fundraiser was created by family members of Nichols that states, "We want to build a memorial skate park for Tyre in honor of his love for skating and sunsets." By January 29, the GoFundMe raised nearly $1 million.